So this is the secret to getting Forbes 30 under 30. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Catherine and I am the founder of Anja Health. We help pregnant parents freeze stem cells from their umbilical cords and placenta to use for potential future disease treatment. And I was on the 2024 Forbes 30 under 30 list in the category consumer tech. I scaled our business to $1.5 million ARR and profitability. And today I'm going to be breaking down how you can optimize your Forbes 30 under 30 written application in order to get Forbes 30 under 30. So I'm going to be reading my own application that did get me on the list out loud. And this is the national list, not the local list. There are a lot of interesting questions on this application, and I guess one interesting thing about Forbes 30 under 30 is that the category that you apply for may not necessarily be the category that you get. For instance, I applied for the healthcare category and I actually got moved to consumer tech, which I think is interesting because I would assume that consumer tech would be more competitive because there are so many consumer apps that are blowing up. But in healthcare, sometimes the healthcare folks are stacked researchers and things like that, and they're like less visible to the public eye. And so yeah, that was just something that personally surprised me about Forbes 30 under 30. But without further ado, I'm going to get into the questions and answers for the Forbes 30 under 30 application and how I think you can optimize your answers to get it. So hopefully you can get Forbes 30 under 30 too. Number one, what is the biggest myth about millennials, Gen Z, or Gen X? Gen Z, and even more so, the generation after it, is not obsessed with social media and does not always live on it. In fact, I think there's an increasing resurgence to not be on your phone, to turn your iPhone on black and white so that you're not as stimulated, or to delete your social media and not have an iPhone whatsoever. Gen Z is tired of worrying about quantifying what others think about them and is looking to foster real IRL relationships, hence the popularity of apps like Be Real and others that don't have public likes or followers. Instead, they focus on using social media to only further strengthen the IRL relationships that they already have rather than shaping a perception of relationships that are URL. So honestly, I think the key to answering questions on the Forbes 30 under 30 application in general, but especially ones like this, is to just have really, really interesting answers that might even be hot takes, because a lot of times they have video interviews for those that they want to feature under each category of Forbes 30 under 30, and I think they want you to have a scintillating clickbaity answer that they can then post on their Forbes socials and have it perform really well. So you want to be able to say something interesting that you think might be able to be clipped properly. That's at least my perception of how these questions and answers are most successfully received. Okay, next question. Do you consider being under 30 an advantage in your chosen career? Yes, people already underestimate me, especially as a woman who loves fashion and has a Californian accent, so being young as well only works in my favor when I am able to exceed expectations. So this one I would say I just answered honestly and sincerely. I tend to have vocal fry and have a California accent and all these things, and my honest take is that because I'm young too, it helps. How do you think global and political conflict has affected the state of entrepreneurship? I said, conflict unites, especially entrepreneurs, because we all identify as change makers who are often inspired by conflict. For instance, COVID-19, the 2020 election, BLM resurgence, etc. It all contributed to phenomena like decentralization, Web3's popularity throughout 2021. Entrepreneurs saw a real need for community, and one of the ways in which it materialized was Discord servers, DAOs, and individual contribution that allowed people to feel closeness and a united mission during a fragmented social period. And so I think similarly, with all of these questions, you want to have an answer that's scintillating, that might even be a hot take, that might be kind of clickbaity, but not problematic, because I think Forbes is ultimately looking for their listers to be vehicles to market Forbes further. And so if you have hot takes in general and things that would go viral, then I think you will be chosen to be a lister. What is one thing you didn't learn in college that would have helped you in the real world? I recently created a Catherine Cross Notion wiki with pages like things that spark joy for me, personal OKRs, how I want the future world to look, how to negotiate an Airbnb rate, things I've learned in business, etc. All of which allowed me to be more self-aware and confident. Too many college students make decisions based on external validation. There should be more emphasis on self-reflection and consistent check-ins to build trust with oneself. I wish I learned how to be more self-aware and reflective in college. So I feel like I also didn't really learn about tech in college, and that's something that I wish I knew about sooner. I wish I was more exposed to entrepreneurship, but I felt like that would have been kind of a basic answer. So I used this question to reflect something interesting about me that I think is unique to me. And I personally don't know that many people that have personal notions where they kind of keep a Wikipedia of themselves. And so I basically try to use every single question to showcase something unique about me that could potentially go viral, be clipped. If I were to be interviewed by Forbes, they could use it, and it might be interesting to viewers, and especially cater towards kind of the normie audience. And what I mean by that is, I guess, those that are not founders and are not in tech, because I think that honestly, those are the folks that are most impressed by Forbes 30 under 30. Hot take, because in tech and entrepreneurship, I actually frequently get clowned for getting Forbes 30 under 30 because they're all like, See you in jail. Oh, I also said, I also wish I knew managerial finance for business purposes, but I chose not to take this in college because I ironically never thought I would need it as I wanted to go to law school for external validation, I later realized. So I think that was also like a really candid answer, just an honest take. So that was just like me being honest. So I think a lot of this is a mix of me being honest. Plus, if I were to get interviewed by Forbes, what would get Forbes clicks? What's a hot take? What's something unique about me? What gives them insight into who I am? That's usually how I'm approaching these questions. What piece of advice would you give your 18-year-old self? Vlog everything and post it on YouTube. Be shameless and show the world what it's like to attend a historically women's college. Because I went to Wellesley and that would have been a crazy thing to YouTube weekly. I honestly should have. Building an audience to any degree cultivates business and especially marketing and growth skills. And exposure to any degree can teach you more about the world and how to connect with it. I think here I was trying to showcase that I'm really active on social media and I understand the power of it. And the reason that I wanted to do this is because, as I've been saying, I think that Forbes really optimizes for folks that seem like they're going to put Forbes on their socials and promote Forbes and show the fact that they are 30 under 30. And when people do that and they really celebrate the accolade of getting Forbes 30 under 30, it helps to market Forbes as a company. So everything that is Forbes 30 under 30 related is really about marketing Forbes as a company. And so when you have founders or people in general that want to be listers or that want to be listees and they're really, really active on social media and they appreciate social media and how to create viral content, then that is optimal for Forbes because they know that the listee will be able to celebrate Forbes and push them forward and show that they are a legitimate brand. And of course they are a legitimate brand, but they really want to optimize. I mean, if I were choosing the listees, I would choose people that would post about us, that post about everything, that would celebrate us, that would put us in their Instagram and Twitter bios and things like that, because that's how Forbes continues to be seen as an elevated, coveted institution. An app that you can't live without. I have a history of fatigue-induced seizures, and maintaining proper health and sleep is really important to me, so I can't live without my Oura Ring app. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is check my sleep score on my Oura Ring app. Gamifying my own health is a life hack. Monitoring my HRV, body temperature, and more is useful to understanding what activities require high exertion, how exercise and high-intensity days impact my sleep and other bodily functions, and how I'm really doing. So this is another honest answer, and I wanted to kind of plug a brand. Personally, I feel like if you're plugging a good brand here, then it shows that you can market other brands well, and that's what I think Forbes is looking for. So yeah, I have my Oura Ring, but this answer was very true. Single most important trait for entrepreneurs, passion. It's interesting because I don't necessarily know if I believe that as an answer anymore. I think that sometimes money and ego can be a bigger motivator for some entrepreneurs, but I do think at the end of the day, you have to be passionate to some degree. Then I went into my founding story. So this is the story of how I founded my company, and this is what I submitted to get Forbes 30 under 30 when I did the written application. I founded Anja Health in memory of my younger brother, Andrew. When I was 3 and he was 1, he was in a near drowning accident that gave him cerebral palsy. Unable to walk or talk, my parents immediately began looking into treatments for CP. They found that the most promising potential solution was an umbilical cord stem cells. A Duke University study revealed that children could intravenously receive their own umbilical cord stem cells, essentially like blank cells that can be used to replace and repair damaged cells, and they could see motor and social skill improvements. My family tried to find a match for my brother, but we were unable to, as it's typically difficult to find a match for someone who is a person of color or mixed race. Chances are as low as 29% if you're Black, and even lower if you're mixed race at all. Coming from a half Chinese and half white family, we were out of luck. So when my brother passed away suddenly in 2021, I founded Anja Health in his memory. His name was Andrew, hence the name Anja. I envision a world where every person of color has access to all of the healthcare options that they can. And I envision a world with better births, where parents are informed of all options around what they can do, including what they can do with their umbilical cord and placenta. Anja Health is backed by YC, 776, the CEO of Roe, Balaji, and more, and with $4.9 million raised to date, we've been able to bank umbilical cord and placenta stem cells for over 1,000 parents and counting. Now it's a little bit more than that, but that's how much it was when I was applying to Forbes. We've also built a community of 160K plus across all social platforms, TikTok and YouTube being the biggest with 150K plus followers and 4K plus subscribers. Now it's a little bit more than that. We will be the go-to resource for evidence-based ways to better one's birth, especially POC and mixed race folks with an initial focus on umbilical cord and placenta options. Yay! So that's my full founding story that I included in my Forbes application. Then I included some references. They do ask for references. I included one of my teammates. I also included some of my investors, some that are high profile and have a high social following themselves, and then also some that just have been real mentors to me, where if someone reached out, I think they would give me a good, sincere reference. Who is my dream mentor? I said Kris Jenner, due to her expertise in brand building and cultivating notoriety. Anja Health is bringing a dormant industry to light and making it accessible, similar to what Kris Jenner did for the Kardashian brand. Her ability to produce billions in value, not only for their family, but for consumers internationally, would make her an amazing mentor for a consumer company like Anja Health. Sorry, I'm a girly pop. So for these, I feel like it would be good if it was someone else that would take the Forbes stage, for instance, and if they were actually someone that you knew and you could illustrate that, because then I think you could show that you can bring value to the Forbes 330 network if you also know cool mentors that could, for instance, be like one of their Forbes 330 Summit speakers. I think that is how I would optimize this question today. I don't know Kris Jenner, unfortunately, but manifesting. The worst business advice that I've ever received was, in quotes, "You should clean up your Instagram if you want to be taken seriously as a founder." And so I wrote that into Forbes 330, and then I followed it up with the explanation of, I used to model as a hobby for small-time gigs, and my Instagram is mostly catered towards fashion, beauty, modeling as a result, especially my older posts. So when I first launched my company, someone gave me that advice, and I really believe that founders should be able to be taken seriously while also openly valuing beauty and fashion. They shouldn't be mutually exclusive, and I've been able to prove that that's the case. So I wrote this over a year ago when I sent in my application for Forbes 330, and then I did get on the list. But I don't know if this was the optimal answer. I think the good thing about it is that it shows that I am really active on social media in general, and I think that that's what Forbes is looking for, is folks that are really active on socials and would be able to promote Forbes as an institution. However, I do think there's something to be said for perception is reality, and sometimes you don't necessarily want to be perceived as the founder that's partying all the time and taking on kind of like the founder lifestyle where you're just jetting off to conferences that don't have any ROI, always at events. I think one thing that I realized is that the best founders honestly don't go to events, don't go to conferences really, because they're usually heads down building, and the ROI on going to events has diminishing returns. I stand by my statement because I think one of my hobbies honestly is setting up photo shoots for myself, as self-absorbed as it seems, but it's because I loved modeling, and I don't think I have the bandwidth to pursue full-time modeling now, but I really, really did love the concept of modeling and how it made me feel, and I loved like the idea of when photographers would let me kind of creative direct the shoot as well, and putting together outfits for the shoot and thinking about angles and editing and things like that. Like that was something that I was really passionate about, and so I can pursue that through my own personal Instagram now. But I think if you go to my Instagram page, I kind of look like a bimbo, but I'm okay with that because I don't mind being underestimated. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about this answer, but that's what I said. Hours a week that I work, I said 55. I kind of wish it was higher, but I was trying to be honest. So they ask you what your greatest achievement is on the Forbes 330 application, and I got it, and I said I cold emailed Alexis Ohanian 8 times over the course of 8 months before getting a response. I was determined to work with him because he's an outspoken advocate for paid paternity leave and other parenting related benefits. His daughter is mixed race, he banked cord blood for his daughter, and he's an expert in media building, which I knew would be the main go-to-market for Anja Health. While I don't think fundraising is necessarily a hallmark for success, I'm so grateful that I now work with 776. I cold emailed most of my others investors too. I think I was just being honest here. I think greatest achievement questions could kind of be anything, but you definitely want it to be something that demonstrates that you dream big. And I think my tenacity to continue to cold email people and just ask for what I want, a lot of other people tell me is really admirable. I personally think you should always be living life that way. Just ask for what you want. Otherwise, you're not going to get it. They also ask you what your first job is. And I said my first part-time job was being a hostess at California Pizza Kitchen, unlocked lore about me. And I said, shout out to the red velvet cake. And then my first full-time job was being a product designer at Publicis Sapient, which lasted for a whole 3 months. And then I went on bereavement leave because my brother passed away, so I was technically employed for longer, but I did not work. Then they asked, are you optimistic about startups right now in this economy? And I said, Square, Stripe, Uber, Airbnb, WhatsApp, and Instagram all came out of the 2008 recession, so I'm always optimistic about starting up regardless of economic conditions. In fact, I think recessions and obstacles inspire people to better their own lives and sometimes even motivate founders to work harder than they would otherwise. Fundraising is all about network, so if you're able to maintain focus and network well, starting up can be done regardless of economic conditions. I think think that you should say that you're optimistic for startups right now, because I think in general, a through line of entrepreneurs is optimism. So I don't know if Forbes optimizes for this per se, but I personally think that demonstrating that you're an optimistic person will help you get Forbes 30 under 30. Then they have some more technical questions about your company. They ask for your revenue every year, and I honestly think it's better to actually be honest with this revenue, because I think if you can A, demonstrate growth, and B, demonstrate scale, like for us, we're now at $1.5 million ARR, and I think that demonstrating that kind of scale and reach as a company is really important to help them get a sense of how you're doing as a company. And if you're doing numbers, then they know that you have a lot of customers and maybe like loyal fans that would be excited about you getting Forbes 30 under 30, and then they would all promote Forbes and you would have a high amount of reach and things like that. So I think that's what they're looking for. Although I have to say, I do know some people that got Forbes 30 under 30 that did not have a lot of revenue, so it's not a must for sure. Then they ask you for your revenue model. The revenue model for my company, Anja Health, is we receive recurring revenue from monthly storage payments that parents pay for storing their own stem cells. We also receive one-time payments from new enrollments we get from currently pregnant parents who are planning to store their stem cells with us. Lastly, we get revenue from media and community placements. Brands pay us to get exposure to our community of pregnant and new parents pay us to get access to that community. So here I'm being honest and just trying to write like Paul Graham, really pithy, clear, and logical. Then they asked for our main competitors, so I listed those. They asked, what company do you most want to emulate? And I said, Good Inside by Dr. Becky, which provides real-time evidence-based parenting advice while offering an effective recurring revenue community product and media offering. Dr. Becky is one of the highest engagement influencers I've ever had the pleasure of meeting, and she's extremely effective at building trust in an audience. So I think Dr. Becky is like literally the best influencer I've ever seen. Her engagement is insane. Her product is really interesting. She's venture-backed, but she's also really good at making content, and I think her content is really sound and logical and provides a real need for parents that are interested in gentle parenting. And so I was just really being honest here, and I also note that I included that I have met her mainly over email and a little bit over Zoom, but I wanted to show that I have a good network, and I think that's important for Forbes folks. Then they asked, why is scaling your next hurdle? I said, for 8 months last year, I made 8 TikToks per day, even on the weekends. I've built an effective demonstration of a media go-to-market strategy by acquiring customers through TikTok and building an audience of 150K plus. However, short-form content that I've produced thus far has been relatively low quality, and the funnel nor quality has been optimized. I'm bullish on the podcast Gary V model, where long-form podcast episodes serve as pillar content and are able to be chopped up effectively into other forms of short-form content. We are currently experimenting with this model in the hopes that it can be as, if not more, successful than my TikTok daily creation strategy. We also want to be able to replicate it across Instagram and YouTube as well, so I'm currently learning the art of static content on Instagram and long-form optimization on YouTube. We're working towards a high-quality, sustainable content creation and media building model. So I wanted to be really honest here, but I also think it helps that my true answer is us building a lot of media content, because I think that Forbes looks for people that are really active on social media to promote Forbes. Then they ask, anything else we should know? And I said, prior to founding Anja Health, I founded Bridge Strategy, a consultancy of 50 plus that advise early stage businesses with social media, design, and management strategy. We help bring work experience to those whose internships and jobs have been impacted by COVID-19. And we helped businesses who had likewise been impacted by COVID-19. This was my first foray into being a founder. So I just wanted to add a little extra pizzazz that couldn't be introduced in prior questions to just show that I have an entrepreneurial spirit, a sense of optimism, that I'm constantly looking to innovate, and I feel like that is something that Forbes looks for. Overall, I would say that my general recommendations for applying to Forbes 30 under 30 is, A, you should know that you don't have to pay. Like, there's a lot of rumors and conspiracy theories about that. Truly, the main thing you have to do is nominate yourself or have others nominate you, or both. To my knowledge, I didn't have any like extra nepotism happening in terms of helping me get Forbes 30 under 30. I literally just submitted the written application and then waited, and I didn't even find out until like the day that they publish the link. Like, that's how I found out, was through the website. And then I bought the magazine and an airport and all this stuff, and there's no like real magic sauce to it. I feel like you should just view your application from the lens of Forbes is a company, and they use Forbes 30 under 30 to market their own company, and it's one of the best marketing campaigns I've ever seen. And so you should try to optimize your application to position yourself as the best vehicle to market Forbes. Like, you have good reach, you're a good founder, you have a lot of revenue, your company has a lot of reach, you are really well connected. You want to be able to convey all of these things through your answers, and also just like interesting things where if you got interviewed by Forbes, it would be a cool clip for them. So yeah, that is how to go about answering your Forbes 30 application questions. I would also have some other folks nominate you if you can, especially if they're current listers. But I mean, I don't think current listers even have that much say to my knowledge. Like, I definitely don't. And so, yeah, just strive for the best, ask for what you want, and you can do it too. Thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful. Also, for the girlies that observe makeup issues, I cannot believe that I just filmed that without my eyeshadow blended out. But anywho, I still imagine that the content was helpful and perhaps my male viewers did not notice. But yeah, okay. Bye.
Trying to be all that I can be for you.